Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we're following opening principles, middle game strategies and the endgame strategies. Today we're continuing with some middle game strategies again. Today we'll talk about a very complex subject I think in chess, and it's the so-called pseudo flank attack. This is really one of my most complex videos that I will show you in my middle game strategies. This idea that I wanted to show you today is really one hard to recognize in your own games, and it's really one hard to defend from because there are the common rules of the flank attack. Here is a position I've already set up for you. I'll explain you now what all about this flank attacks, about this pseudo flank attack. Here is a common position of the barrier attack, and the barrier attack is of course a very aggressive opening, and the main idea about this opening is to launch maybe here knight to e5, h4, h5. This would be a normal flank attack, which idea of course is to open the h file, maybe somehow to trade off the stars for bishops on g7, and maybe include the queen through the square d2, place the queen on h6 and deliver checkmate on h7 or on h8. As I mentioned in many of my videos, I want you really to pay good attention. This is really a complex subject. As I mentioned in many of my videos, we could launch a flank attack, but still the result of this flank attack will never be, I think, or at least in not so many cases, it will be that you will deliver checkmate. The main idea about flank attacks is to create weaknesses against your opponent's castle king. So here we could maybe split some pawns, maybe create an open g file or h file, and our idea is of course to deliver checkmate, but most of the times this game ends with some weaknesses, with an endangered king, and then you maybe grab a pawn and win an endgame. This pseudo attack, pseudo flank attack, is really a weird idea in chess, because when we play on this pseudo flank attack, it's quite the opposite. Basically, we launch this flank attack. It will be a position in which we maybe try here to launch a flank attack, but still we would castle on the king side here, which is really an incredible thing. And maybe in this attack we could create weaknesses on the queen side. So the idea behind this pseudo flank attack is not to create weaknesses in front of your opponent's king. It's in general, it's really a position in which we create new weaknesses on the other side. It means here in this particular position on the queen side, and your opponent will probably get out of this problems of this endangered king, because we started to do this flank attacks in order to make maybe some checkmate threats, as I said, maybe to create weaknesses in front of your opponent's king, and maybe your opponent will defend very well against your flank attack, maybe with here in this particular position with some h5 motifs which could really block out the king side. And then when that happens, when you don't have really the opportunity anymore to create this endangered king positions, then you should really try and change the direction of the attack and even castle on the king side where you have to launch the attack. So I wanted to show you now a couple of examples of my games, how I pulled off this pseudo flank attack. Here is a game I played the move d4, knight to f6, knight to f3. We'll skip a little bit faster this opening preparations. After c4, c6, knight to c3, and we have now g6. As I usually like to play flank attacks against my opponent's fianchetto, I launched immediately the move h4. But my idea, believe me or not, is not to play on this common idea bishop to h6, as I mentioned, rook, bishop takes h6 here, maybe queen takes h6 and deliver checkmate on the h file. My idea is a whole different idea. My idea here is to create weaknesses here on the queen side, maybe here somewhere. So it's really a paradoxical thing in chess. That's why I really need you now to focus, to really pay good attention. Here in the game my opponent tried h5, so he blocked out my king side. It seems to me now that I don't have any more attacking possibilities. I played bishop to f4, bishop to g5, g4 attacking the knight, knight to e5. We have knight from b to d7. I played f3, bishop to e6, and now c5. So I have now created a new position in which I will probably now continue my attack on the queen side, although I have pushed here the pawn on h4, so my opponent was probably a little bit scared that I will launch my flank attack, and he defended very well. That's why I changed really the direction of the attack in the game. Knight takes e5, bishop takes, bishop to g7, e3, and believe me or not, in this game I will even castle on the king side, on that side where I have started the attack. So in the game castling, queen to d2 or b6, you see my opponent is trying to crack the position, because here I have an advanced pawn, and that was his mistake, because in this game, as I said, I launched the flank attack immediately. My opponent blocked the flank attack, so he probably wasn't thinking that I could still castle on the king side and attack here the queen side. So my attack really changed after the move b6. I played simply knight to f4. We have knight to d7, bishop takes, king takes, and now rook to c1, and the pawn takes c5, knight takes c5, knight takes, rook takes c5, and now this flank attack resulted with a new weakness, and it's the weak pawn on c6. So you see, I've created this attack just in order to make new weaknesses. My opponent has defended, as I said, he hadn't here some checkmate threats in front of the king, but while defending this flank attacks created now this new weaknesses, and in this position I'm satisfied with the outcome of the game. It's not a problem here. I wouldn't lose, I think, this endgame even I don't know, against Anatoly Karpov, I think, because here we have a problem. Our opponent has here the light square bishop, which is really blocked out by its own pawns. All of these pawns are on light squares. On the other hand, my bishop can play very, very freely, and we have a clear target. It's the pawn on c6. So you see, I didn't continue to push here with some g4, g5 ideas to maybe crack the position in front of black's king, because my king is still in the center. So in the game, my opponent tried queen to b6. I played bishop to d3, rook to b8, and now b3. It's not a problem here to defend. In the game, bishop to d7, and now castling. I castled basically into the attack, into my flank attack, where I so it seems that it's a little bit risky here to castle, but still it's very hard for my opponent to attack this pawn on h4. Still, this pawn is defendable with g3, so, or even with queen to f2. So in the game, e5, we have rook to c1, e takes d4, e takes d, rook to e8, queen to f4, activating the queen, queen to d8, and now you see g3, improving the position of this pawn. Never allow my opponent to create some pawn storm possibilities here on the king side. In the game, queen to f6. Not a problem. I simply traded and went into a favorable endgame with rook to e1, rook takes, and now here simply b4, even more paralyzing the queen side. In the game, rook to e8 was played, bishop to c2, rook to b8, not a problem, a3, simply protecting everything, rook to b5, not a problem. I used now this moment in order to improve the position of my king. Rook takes, pawn takes, and now the king can come very actively into the game through dark squares. Here I have created now a new position in which I have always the opportunity to create a pass pawn situation. In the game a5, I created here a very nice blocking system on dark squares with the move g5, kicking away the king, king to e7, and now king to e5. Now my king is very, very active. That was all possible because, as I mentioned, I created this weakness on c6 in the first place. This bishop is only used as a defender of this pawn on c6. We have bishop to g4. I simply improved the position of the bishop, bishop to e2, playing sort of a Zugzwang position, and now bishop to e8 allowed me now to come very, very actively into the game with my bishop. This bishop is paralyzed. My opponent didn't have good moves. I think he has to move the king from the defense here of the pawns. He played now king to f8, king to f6, again a4, again sort of a Zugzwang move, and now king to e7. This game was game over, because here after bishop to d7, my opponent has only pawn moves, and this is now of course a completely winning endgame. So let's see now another example. Here again d4, I will skip a little bit faster, as I mentioned. I played this so-called 150 attack, again with ideas maybe to create flank attacks h4, h5. But here after castling, queen to d2, knight to c6, d5, knight to e5, knight takes, d takes e5, and now f3. Now I'm again trying first to launch the flank attack, force my opponent to create weaknesses, maybe here on the queen side with some c6 moves. Then after d takes c6, he will have maybe sort of an isolated pawn on c6. So he tried knight to e8. I created to push, created this common flank attack in order to deliver maybe checkmate with some bishop to h6 ideas, trading off the bishops, h4, h5. My opponent played knight to d6. I simply continued to push. We have f5, bishop to e2, f4. And probably my opponent was now satisfied because he got out of my common flank attack idea. Now it's very hard for me to open the h-file. Here after bishop to f2, he played h6. I played h5. Tricked him a little bit because now after g5, I played a4. Simply now attacking the queen side because this is now really a blocked position. With this flank attack possibility, I created a new position in which my opponent has really this bad bishop situation. So for me, it's enough, and I have really a strategical improvement. My opponent has a bad piece, so now maybe it's time even for me to go into an endgame. I can even castle here on the king side. It's not a problem because this block pawn structure allows me these types of moves, these types of plays, because I'm not worried at all. My bishops are still active, aiming here on the queen side. And as I said, the main problem of blacks are these two weak bishops. This bishop on c8 is blocked out, and also this bishop on g7. After these flank attack possibilities, as I said, my opponent defended, I think, very well here. He didn't have here checkmate threats, but my idea was that he will defend against this checkmate threats. And now after c6, finally the move that I waited, I played simply d takes c6, and now we have b takes c6, which is really a favorable continuation for me, as now again we have a new weakness. It's the pawn on c6 and still the weakness with the bishop on g7. Now I simply castled into my attack. So it's really an incredible idea in chess, I think, to castle even where you have attacked first. But this pawn structure, this block pawn structure, as I mentioned, allows me these types of castlings even. So now I'm perfectly fine, because in order to make these pawns rolling somehow, you would need to sacrifice a piece. For instance, knight takes e4 or something, just maybe to get these pawns rolling. But that's of course very risky, as you lose simply a minor piece. So here in the game, bishop to e6 was played, b3. Now it's very easy for me to find the best next move. I played simply on a trade of queens, rook to d1, rook takes, and now king to f7. I played bishop to a6. You see, these bishops are perfectly fine. These bishops are blocked, so now I'm going into a favorable endgame. Here, rook to b8, and now I took simply, and now rook to d8. My opponent tried king to rook to c7. I played bishop to c5, improving the position of my bishop. Bishop to c8, and now I simply took a pawn. My opponent tried here sort of a counterattack, but it's not a problem. I simply played bishop to b6, attacking the rook, rook to b7, and now a5. Still, of course, I can lose the pawn, but that's not the point here. After bishop to f3, bishop to c5, now I have a new position in which I simply can push this pawn. My opponent tried rook to c7, and now a7, rook takes a7, and now after bishop takes a7, it was game over. So you see, my idea here after the move f3 is here to create the flank attacks, then trying to block the position, trying really to create this blocked pawn structures, and then maybe force my opponent to go into simplifications with c6 or e6, in which he will probably challenge my advanced d5 pawn. But then of course I could go into a favorable endgame, because as I mentioned, this bishop is blocked out. So you see, this idea is really a simplification idea in chess, although it seems a little bit complex, because most of the times we try to complicate positions, we try to search tactics. Here I played on simple ideas, weak pawns, weak squares, weak pieces, undeveloped pieces. So here, as I said, after knight to e8, created the flank attack. My opponent counter-attacked with the move f5, which seemed, of course, like a good idea. Played bishop to e2, forcing my opponent to block the position. After bishop to f2, now I further blocked the position, and now I could even castle here immediately. It's not a problem. Here my bishop's activity allows me to now change the direction of the attack with c4, b4 ideas, and similar stuff. So, okay, I hope that you realize these ideas. These are the main principles. So, usually we use the flank attack in order to create weaknesses in front of our opponent's king. So we are trying maybe to open files, open diagonals. But in this pseudo flank attack, we create this flank attack in order to force our opponent to defend from the flank attack when he is probably satisfied with this idea. Okay, now I have defended, my opponent cannot checkmate me on the h file. Then it's time really to change the direction of the attack, create new weaknesses on that side, on the queen side, even castle on that side where we have created the attack, and really use these simple weaknesses, as I said, the weak square or weak pawn, in order to go maybe into a favorable endgame. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my other basics in chess videos from the series. Here's the link, and you can also watch my chess tactics and chess puzzles videos, in which I show you all of the possible tactical motifs that can happen to in a chess game. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.